This is Miss Lizzie, and I want to welcome you to the Queen Lizzie podcast. Together, we will go through the history of Rosewood, Florida, and watch as the once prosperous town rises out of the bloodshed, fire, and ash to reveal the people, the memory, and the legacy of Rosewood. Watch every Thursday on Facebook and YouTube, or listen to our story on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Hello, everybody. I'm Lizzie Robinson Jenkins, representing not only the Rosewood Foundation, but the personal testimonies and history of cherished friends and family. You are now watching the Queen Lizzie podcast. Today, we are talking about timeline, Rosewood timeline, which started with me in 1993, and I went back to 1894, researching history that I had heard about, only to confirm it with what I know about. And first of all, I want to thank the Campus USA Credit Union as a life member, Meldon Law as a supporting member, and Greg Bradley, Allstate Insurance Company. Today, the story, my Rosewood story, is going to be different because I am going to do this solo. Okay, and when I say solo, I don't have a guest today, and I'm going to talk about what I learned about from my mother, who was the sister to the Real Rosewood school teacher, and everything I know about Rosewood, I learned from her. And as I said, her sister was a school teacher. Her sister was very close to her. But something happened in Rosewood that I'm not going to tell you about right now. I'll tell you about it later, because my mom believed in telling the story truthfully. She knew I needed to know the history verbally from her before I started my research. So what she did for me, in order to familiarize me with the story, she decided to write a song for me. And that song tells me what I'm going to share with you. That Rosewood is now located on Highway 24. Highway 24 is the road that leads from Gainesville on Highway 24 through Levy County, Otter Creek, Elsie, and Rosewood. And it also takes you to Cedar Key. So my mom's song started with Rosewood, Florida, borders Highway 24. And at that time, it was no more Rosewood. And she said it was a destroyed habitats, and the black folks didn't live there anymore. And she made it into a rhyme to say, where emptiness resides and the silent sacred breathes life, there are no more for Rosewood, only nature's moss-hung trees. She went on to tell us that the community were closely linked. Everybody worked together, helped each other, and the friendship was a kinship. And in this town of Rosewood, everybody was proud because they worked. They helped each other. Okay, they provided for their family, and they wanted their kids to have a decent education. And that was their aim, to work, educate their kids, and they did that. Until January 1, 1923, a lady decided that she wanted to accuse a black man of assaulting her, which was my uncle. And as a result of that, they lost control of the town because the KKK came into Rosewood, Sumner, and as a result of her lie and attack the black community, a community that they knew very well and that they got along with. They worked together. They respected each other. But as a result of a lie, Rosewood was semi-demolished. Not semi, it was demolished after a few days of fighting. It left a stain on Rosewood because eventually it was burned down to the ground. And as a result of that, Mom said, well, now, it happened. However, the people in Rosewood did not have a way out of Rosewood because Rosewood is on Highway 24, which leads into Cedar Key. Cedar Key is a peninsula, one way in and one way out. They did not have any idea. They did not know how they were going to escape the fighting, escape from Rosewood to Alachua County. Therefore, the sheriff Bob Walker, the Levy County Sheriff, who was a good Samaritan, and he knew that he could not allow the town of Rosewood to be destroyed. So he did everything within his power. As my mom said, he worked 96 hours straight in an effort to make sure the people of Rosewood survived. And not only did he work, he encouraged the store merchant who knew the people of Rosewood because they did their shopping there to assist him in hiding the Rosewood people until the train conductors, the Bryce brothers, decided after 3 or 4 days of begging and pleading from the sheriff, they decided, well, Bob, we will help you. We will help you, but it has to be late night. We cannot afford to jeopardize the lives of our family and the lives of the Cedar Key people who he had planned to ask him to assist him in getting the people out of Rosewood. Eventually they agreed, and I call them my unsung heroes. So there were a few agreed to help him move the people out of Rosewood to Gainesville. So, as I said, they were Cedar Key train conductors, and the song, in fact, I have been talking the song and telling the story, but my mom put a little music to it that says, the Cedar Key train conductors were told to pick up in Rosewood. Standing by the tracks with a lantern, its young school teacher stood, waiting in desperation to carry out the sheriff's plans, rounding up the hidden survivors to board the midnight train. Remember, I told you they said they would go on that train and they would help, but it must be late at night. And that is exactly what they did. And the person who was standing at the train tracks with the lantern was my aunt, the Rosewood school teacher, who really had suffered the agony of defeat. And I may not get into telling you the agony that she suffered because the story will expand more than I want it to today. So, from that verse to the next verse that says, the Rosewood school teacher sadly lost everything, violated and scarred for life by the KKK kings, her profession blemished, her life dreams derailed. None of the Jim Crow boys ever went to jail. And then it goes on to say that the sheriff did help. The sheriff and the store owner worked around the clock, informed the train conductors just when and where to stop, pick up the men, women, and children who were hiding out, and bring them to Archer, Florida, traveling the same old route. And Archer, Florida is where I live today. It is where the school teacher was born, in Archer. However, she taught in Rosewood. And in Archer, we have we still own today the same property that my great grandfather purchased in 1897. And this is where we are going to bring the Rosewood House, the John Wright Rosewood House from Rosewood to Archer, and put it on that property and make it into a museum. We have 29 acres there. And as we speak, we are working to make sure this happens. And we do have people working with us. So the Bryce brothers headed on up the track, dropping off other survivors, not taking the time to look back, counting heads and making a list, doing what they knew they should, to report to Sheriff Bob Walker back down in Rosewood. Now, when they left Cedar Key, they went through Waldo, Stark, Lottie, Maxville. This is where the train went. Why did it head in this direction? Why did it go north? Because the people that boarded the train from Rosewood, they were really not from Rosewood. Most of them, many years ago in the early 1800s, came to Cedar Key via the Schrooners, enslaved, and lived in Cedar Key. And from that particular point, the town, they continued to bring more and more people in. The Schroner would go back and bring in more enslaved, and the town began to grow. So that's where the other people came from. The reason they were going north is because they didn't know anybody that lived south, and many of them got off the train in between there and Gainesville, but they didn't know anybody. But this was part of rescuing them and making sure they were safe. And as a result of that, some of them moved from, well, the train stopped in Briceville. And the reason it stopped in Briceville is because the Bryce brothers were driving the train. They were the conductors, and that was their home. Their father lived there, John Bryce, and he owned a sawmill. And he made sure when the people got there, they were given jobs and shanties to live in. And as I speak today, I have a picture of the train that brought them from Rosewood to Briceville. And in the yard, in the train yard, there's a picture of the Bryce family and some of the Rosewood workers. That you can tell they were workers because they were wearing their work outfits. Okay, so this is my story that was told to me by my mother, who is very, very articulate, very, very concerned about telling this story, giving the people credit that need credit, not attack anybody for what happened. Just tell the story, baby, and make sure you keep it alive. And that's what I have done for 30 years, and I want people to understand. I will continue to tell this story. This is the story that I learned. This is the story I know. This is the story I am going to share. And I share it, hopefully, non-biased, because we don't need to create hate. It's enough out there all by itself. So I try to keep it to the best of my ability correct. And I have also written another song that I'm going to tell you about after the break. That's about time for our first half. We are going to head to a quick break, and we'll be right back after a Rosewood word.
Albert, Alberta, I understand you were witnesses to a crash. Can you tell us about the accident? When you're in a crash, it's important to get witness statements immediately after the accident. Whether you're in a car, truck, motorcycle, scooter, or even a golf cart accident, at Meldon Law, we won't back down.
My name is Lizzie Robinson Jenkins. I am the president and founder of the Real Rosewood Foundation, established 2003 in Archer, Florida. Years ago, in a little town called Rosewood, Florida, there was a massacre. Several people were killed, all because of guns, violence, disrespect. We cannot allow gun violence to take out our young kids. We're coming together. We're going to work together. And we are going to put guns on the run. GNV.
I am Black History.
I am Rosewood Black History.
I am Florida and America's Black History.
And you are too.
January 1st, 1923, the KKK insurrectionists attacked Rosewood, killing 5, burning it down.
Because a white woman lied and cried, a black man assaulted me. Rosewood redevelopment is on its way.
Want to help? Visit rosewoodflorida.com.
Welcome back to Queen Lizzie Podcast, recorded right here at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Coach Spurrier's own podcast room. We are here and we are about to talk about Rosewood Timeline. I'm going to finish some information that I started on before the halftime, okay? But I want you all to know that my mother was a songwriter, and everything, as far as she was concerned, had a beat or a rhythm to it. But I want to stop here again and thank Campus Credit Union, USA, and Meldon Law, and Greg Bradley Insurance Company. Okay, so when I shared with you about singing a song or writing a song, people want us to believe that there are a few people that were involved in Rosewood. There were many people. And the song that I have put together, more than 50 families, okay, that I know of. And what makes it very interesting, the names that I have and the families that I found on the census living next to each other were not all white. They were mixed. And I remember finding my great-great-grandfather, Henry McIntyre, in Cedar Key. And at the end of the bottom of that census, he lived on Lot 101. Next to Lot 101 was Lot 102. And Harriet Walker lived there. And I knew that she had to have been related to Sheriff Bob Walker. I could not prove it. But number 5, the 5th kid that was on that census was a John. Now, I don't know if it was John Wright, but that information stayed with me. And when Mom would tell me how much or how hard the sheriff worked, I knew he had to know my great-grandfather, because there was a Walker that lived on Lot 102, next to my great-great-grandfather that lived on Lot 101. So when it ended up a couple of 3 weeks ago, they are related. And I'm not going to tell you about it today. But this song that I have written, that I have put together, is a rap. Yes, I'm going to be rapping. I'm going to rap this song. And it starts out, Rosewood, no more, no more, no more, but it's in a rap tune. Rosewood, no more, no more, no more, no more enjoyment, laughter, or cheers. Rosewood survivors sadly disappeared. No more pledge of allegiance for our school kids. Their lives were shattered and their dreams went up for bid. No more singing or shouting in high heels, joined by the Smiths, Peyton, and Castile. Rosewood no more. Remember their starters, the Bradley, the Randolph, the Wares, and Sam Carter. So it goes on and on and on to list more than 50 families. And I'm not going to do the song for you today, because I'm going to talk about some other information that is important. Okay, and I'm going to just kind of like go out on a limb and say, well, who is Lizzie, Polly, Robinson, Brown, Bowman, Coleman, Cotman, Davis, Hasley, Love, McIntyre, Sam Jenkins? That's me. Doing my Rosewood research, I have been able to connect my family. So my family's name is Lizzie, Polly, Robinson, Brown, Bowman, Coleman, Cotman, Davis, Hasley, Love, McIntyre, Sam's Jenkins. That's who I am, 12 names later. Okay? My 30 years of research has been very, very helpful, helping me locate and identify who I am. Who is Teresa Brown Robinson? Okay? She's my mother. She's my teacher. She's my historian, my mentor, my salvation, the joy of my salvation. She is my amazing grace. She's my precious Lord, because everything I know, she taught me. Who is Mahalda Gussie Brown Carrier? I know who she is. I am the only living person who knows who she is, how she looks. And I see her picture on documents. I see her on a model. No one has gotten permission from me to use any information. They go to my website, they copy my information, my Facebook, use my information, but they really don't know who Mahalda Gussie Brown Carrier is. As I said, I am the only person living who knows and who can identify her. Who is Aaron Carrier? On paper, her husband. In my mind, when I see Aaron, I see my aunt, because they are a couple, husband and wife. And as I said, they are all over the internet, their pictures, but no one knows. And I don't know what, I'm not going to go there. So, my aunt, as I said, was a Rosewood school teacher. She was also the Meredith teacher. In fact, she taught in Meredith, Levy County, Florida, before she taught in Rosewood. From 1910 to 1915, she taught in Meredith. Meredith, Levy County was a small community with a sawmill. She met a young man, her husband, that worked in Meredith. He was from Rosewood. He encouraged her to relocate to Rosewood because there were more students to teach, okay, in Rosewood than it was in Meredith. So she was living in Rosewood 2 years before she married Aaron Carrier. So from 1915 to 1923, she taught in Rosewood. From 1915 to 1923, from 1915 to 1917, she was single, living in Rosewood with the DeBose family. So they got married on December 19, 1917. In fact, this is the information we had to use to identify ourselves to make sure my family or her family was eligible for the Rosewood compensation when they did the reparation. We used her information, her marriage certificate. This identified her and put her in Rosewood when she needed to be there. Okay, so not only was she a teacher in Meredith and Rosewood, she was also a principal in Gulf Hammock, Levy County. And this was many years later, in 1941, 42-ish, 43-ish, when she went to Gulf Hammock to become a teacher there. And her parents, well, her father, her mom had passed. And my mother could not believe she wanted, or she was brave enough to go back to Gulf Hammock and become a principal. She did not have credentials to prove that she had taught school, but there was one person living that knew she was a Rosewood school teacher, and that was the sheriff, Sheriff Bob Walker. So what she did, she went to Sheriff Bob Walker, borrowed my dad's car, and found him in Brunson where he lived and said to him, and back up, I understand when he saw her coming toward his car, Mom said he almost passed out because he knew it was her. And he wanted to know, what are you doing here? And it wasn't a pleasant conversation. She said, Sheriff, there is a vacancy in Gulf Hammer, a principalship. You are the only person alive who knows that I was a teacher in Rosewood. I need a reference. He said, get in your car and get out of here, in that tone. Because, why? He was afraid for her safety. It was almost 20 years, 25 years later, but he was still afraid for his safety and her safety and his safety too. So he said to her when she left, you will hear from me in a few days. Sure enough, he got somebody to write her an emergency principalship certificate. And he brought it to Archie to her. And today, our family owns that emergency certificate. It's a carbon copy, yellow. Okay. So I like for people to know everything I talk about. I always have the supporting evidence, okay, to show that my work is real. I know it's real, but I want you to know it's real. It's legit. That's why people listen to me, and I know you're listening to me on podcasts, but the one thing I don't like you when you copy my information. That's called plagiarism. So stop it if you can't prove it. Yes, I'm saying it, and I mean it. Don't do that. Okay, I have worked really hard to authenticate my work. So it's not your work. I have written a song about my great-grandmother too, who was not a Rosewood descendant. She was a slave. She was once enslaved and was captured and brought to Archer, Florida. However, her time, history repeats itself. She was raped too. She was captured from her home, age 13, walked 678 miles from Jackson, Mississippi to Archer, Florida. It took them 6 months to get here. Of course she was raped. So history does repeat itself. So her story was really sad, but Mom said she always made, not into a joke, but into a story wherein they were able to understand it. She was angry, but she never told her story angrily. In fact, she wrote a song about herself. You can't hold a good woman down. You can't hold down a good woman. You can't hold down a good woman. You can't hold down a good woman. You can't hold a good woman down. And the song goes on and on and on. And I too am going to record that song in honor of her. It's a good song, okay? I like to write songs. I like to sing songs. And I have a real funny song that I put together in 2010. And I'm going to put this song out there because it talks about gerrymandering, and it's called Listen Up. I'm not going to tell you because you'll hear it before I put it out there. But anyway, it's a song. It's political. I'm talking about politicians. You may not want to hear it, but you all are going to love it because it's a true song. Okay. So my writing ability is more than about history. It's about people, and I have a lot more that I could say, but I am not going to. And if you want to donate, go to rosewoodflorida.com. I have some business cards. Some membership cards that I am making so that you all can become a member, okay? But if you want to donate to the foundation, go to www.rosewoodflorida.com and donate. And thanks again to Campus Credit Union, Meldon Law, and Greg Bradley Insurance Company, Allstate. I am continuously humbled, honored, and blessed to meet people daily and invite them to join in peace building, healing, and reconciliation through learning about the history of Rosewood. That will wrap up today's episode. I am Queen Lizzie. Until next time. Goodbye.